So once I have selected here on the right, we have the chart, the pie chart selected. And once I've selected it, you can see sort of that gyroscope there in the middle of the screen, which allows me just basically to rotate that chart to any angle that I'd like. Additionally, I've also tapped the paintbrush, the styles option above. Because I'm in a chart, it gives me those options, similarly to what it gave us in Pages for our graphic image. This is giving us a 2D or 3D option. And then also you see at the top it has a range that will take us to the same menu as before in terms of bringing things to the front or back. And then our chart options are similar as well. And I think I have a couple shots of that coming up. Over on the right side, we see that I've touched actually in the sheet, and then I've touched the styles option, and it gives me a different set of options. It gives me the table options here, and it gives me headers, it gives me the ability to format my cells, and it gives me the ability just to format in general that table that I have selected. So you really have a powerful set of features here. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, Katie. So in the next slide here, we're back on the far left. We're looking at the table again. And once we go to headers, we have the ability to set a number of header rows. We can freeze rows if necessary. We can also set header columns, and we can freeze columns as well. And if you'd like to set a footer row, you can do that easily there as well. If we go over to the screen on the right, we have the ability, of course, to change your text, to style your text. Very similar options to what we saw in Pages, your bold, italicized, underline, strike through. You also have the ability to center your text, either to block it, to center, left or right. And then we have the ability there, right about in the middle of the screen under text options on the right, you have the ability to force your text to the top of the cell, have it in the center of the cell with those two arrows pointing at one another, or force it to the bottom of the cell. You also have the ability to change your fill color, and then you have border style options there as well. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This is basically the screen that shows you the different types of cells that the formatting your cells with. You want a numeric cell, you want currency, you want percentages, date, time, so on and so forth. So if you were to touch on any of the blue arrows there, it will take you to a sub-menu that will give you the ability to format those options and select different options to customize that cell to meet exactly your need. If you want a $sign there, if you want 2 decimals, 1 decimal for date and time, it gives you date options. If you want a custom date, if you just want to show the month and the day, you have all of those options there that are available. If you look at the bottom of that screen there where the cell format options are, you see that there's a checkbox option. And then if we look over at the table, we see that that's actually placed in my table there under the shift option. Just gives you a little quick view of what that looks like. So it's really easy to put a checkbox in your spreadsheet. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And so here's what I was speaking about earlier. If you tap the plus sign, it gives you the ability to create a new sheet, or it gives you the ability to create a new form. And the form would basically be related to whatever table you select and allow you to do input for that sheet very easily. I think that's what the next slide will show. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Yes, here we are. Okay. So once you tap new form, basically if you look at the screen on the left, you see our sheet, which is called Class Today. And then you see where it says Empty Form. Underneath Empty Form, it's basically asking me to select the table. Okay, and I'm just going to select Table 1. Once I select Table 1, we'll move over to the screen on the right. We'll see where we have the price, we have that shipped field there, we have the date ordered, and we have the units, which again we're all related to our chart as well. If you look at the very bottom of that screen, you have some navigation buttons to go move forward and backwards. If we have 4 records, or 4, I guess you can say, rows in our sheet, so I can move between those rows by hitting those forward and backwards buttons. If I wanted to add a new row, I could hit the plus sign, it would then bring up a blank screen for price, shipped, date ordered, and units, which I can just begin to fill out those fields, and I can continue to hit plus until I'm done. If I needed to delete a record, of course, I could just hit the trash can and it would delete that row for me. Okay, go ahead and move to the next slide. So when you're in Excel, excuse me, Freudian slip there. When you're in numbers, what the key thing is most people want to do calculations and things of that nature, and the keyboard is very intuitive and it allows you to use those options in terms of functions, in terms of text options, in terms of date and time options. The keyboard is very intuitive and allows you to enter that data when you need it. So if we look on the right side of the screen here, then we see that our keyboard right now is showing a date and time option. The blue circle with the clock is selected. So once that is selected, then it brings up the options for date and time, and right underneath that we see that we have our duration option. Right next to that, where the clock is, where you see the 42, the clock, the T, the equal sign, if you keep going over to the right, you start seeing options for day, for month, for day, for year, for hour, and minute, second, for AM, and so on. If you were to select day, it would actually change those January, February, March days to a different set of keys. If you were to select year, it would change those keys as well. If you're doing time and you select hour, it would change those keys there. So whatever you have selected in green, the corresponding keypad below will allow you to enter your option, your entry based on those keys. If we look over on the right side, we basically have the T touch, which is just for text. So if you wanted to type any text in any of the cell that is selected, and I'm referring to the blue cell selected under price top of the screen there. If I wanted to type any text in there, I could just go ahead and begin to type with my keyboard. If I wanted to type any numbers, of course I would select the 42, and that would bring me to a numeric keypad as well. Let's go ahead and go over to the next slide. Okay. So tapping the three dots there brings up just the numeric keypad in which I can begin to type in numbers and or calculations by tapping the equal sign there. So once I did tap the equal sign, as we look over here on the right side of the screen, it basically brings up an option for me to, tapping the functions key over there, on the right side of the screen. It brings up a menu which shows me all of the functions that are available. So we have the standard functions, the min, the sum, the average, the max, the count, so on and so forth. If you see underneath there, you have the ABC in quotes, you have the calendar functions, and then you have true, false functions. So whichever key you select, you get the appropriate functions that are related to that key that you selected. So let's go ahead and go to the next screen. Okay, so now we're just looking at a screen that's showing us all functions, an option for date and time, option for duration, engineering. Basically what I wanted to display was that there are a full set of functions that are available in numbers that are equivalent to Excel or equivalent to numbers on your laptop or your desktop computer. They're all available for you. It's a matter of tapping into the cell and bringing up the appropriate keyboard and selecting the appropriate options for the function that you'd like to create. At that point, you can begin to build your function in the green bar down there. And I think right under, if you can see right underneath, there's a plus, a red and a green buttons which allow you to do some checking of the functions before it actually completes it and enters that into your cell. I think the right side is basically showing us kind of the same thing. It's another screenshot of the month option there, the date and time option. So let's go ahead and move to the next slide. Okay, we're going to talk about Keynote now. And so Keynote, again, is the equivalent of Microsoft PowerPoint. So it makes it easy for you to create and deliver and share your presentation, such as we're doing today. This presentation was actually created in Keynote, but I exported it to PowerPoint just so we can, WebEx only supports PowerPoint, so you see the ability and the power that it has to easily convert documents from its native format to its Microsoft brothers and sisters format. Again, with Keynote, just as with pages and numbers, anything that you do will be stored in the cloud if you have that enabled. You'll have full access to those documents from any of your other mobile devices or your desktop computer if necessary. Okay, so again, Keynote looks pretty much just like pages and numbers. This is our initial screen when we start the application. If you look up in the top right-hand corner, left-hand corner of the screen, you'll see the plus sign, which I referred to when we opened up or looked at our pages screenshot. Tapping that plus will give you the ability to create a new document pretty easily, or select one from a template from a template. And again, Keynote has quite a few templates that are available as well. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So now you're looking at the options for the templates or the themes, and we have about 16 different options here. Selecting them will basically format the document for the option in which which you desire. And so some of them have more graphics in them, some of them have less graphics and more text. And once we get a little bit deeper into the slides, we'll see what all the options are for Keynote. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide, Katie. So basically, once you select a theme and you've created a presentation, I've actually here selected a presentation, a sample presentation that was already done. On the bottom right-hand portion of the screen, we have the plus sign. So you can tap the plus sign basically to add a slide to your presentation. And once you tap the plus sign, the slides are already formatted based on whichever theme you have selected. If you select a blank theme, you're going to get blank slides. If you select one of the themes had a motorcycle in the middle of it, and your slides will be formatted that way as well. Okay, go ahead and let's go to the next slide. So inside of your slides, basically we have a text box here. So selecting the text box and tapping the paintbrush on top, which is our style option, gives us the options to style that box that we selected. So we see some with red, green, blue borders, some with fills, those different types of things as well. Very, very similar to pages and numbers. Again, all the applications were designed with the exact same interface. You just have different options for basically what you select. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So the next slide basically is showing our style options. So we have the ability to fill this box with different colors. You see right next to fill in this box, you have a border, and then you have an effects button. Also on the bottom of the color palette there, you see that there's 4 different options that are available there as well. So you can see what the color modes, different color modes are. Go to the next slide. This is showing us our text options. You can do subtitle, body, you can do bullets. Pretty self-explanatory. However you wanted to format your text for that box, this is where you come to select those options for that text. And let's go to the next slide, Katie. And then again, arrange, very similar to our pages and numbers. You can move objects to the front or the back. You have your text alignment options for the center, the top, or the bottom of the box you're in. You have the columns, and then you have a margin option where you can select that as well for your box. Let's go to the next slide. Now, if you just double tap a box, then you see, of course, you have the standard cut, copy, and delete options. But we know that in PowerPoint and Keynote, you may want to do some type of animation on your text. As you can see right there, there's a button that says Animate. And if you tap that button, it'll give you a few different options to apply different types of styles to your text. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide, which we see after I've tapped that animate button, then basically I have two other options there. It says to build in, right now there's none, and to build out, there's none. So if I were to tap those options, either of those options, then it gives me the ability to select a myriad of options for my build in and my build out for my text. So let's go to the next slide. So after tapping build in, we see that we have just appear, blast, blind, bouncy, and there's probably another 40 options that are available just by taking your finger and swiping down. You'll have access to those 40 options relatively easily. By just tapping in the one that you want, it will then give you it will apply that option to your text. And then we see on the bottom down there where it's right next to effects, you have the other choices for options, and we're going to look at that, delivery, and then you can order those things as well. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Katie. So this is our options. These are options. We can see that we can do the build-in for 2 seconds. We can start the build on tap. We can do after transition. It just basically depends on what you want. You can select multiple options there. If you want your build-in to be longer, of course you would increase or decrease the seconds there, and you can see the effect as well. There's a little, if you look at the top of the screen, at the top right-hand portion of the screen where the done button is, you see there's a little play button there, which allows you basically to get a preview of the options before you actually save it. Okay, so if we look at the delivery options here, on the bottom there, we're looking at, you can deliver all of your build-in at once. You can do it by paragraph group, so on and so forth. You basically have full control over how you build in your animation for any of the objects that are on your slide. And then this is the build order. If I had multiple options on my screen that had animation, I could order them so that they could come in the way that I want them. If I wanted something at the bottom to come in first, I could obviously move that up to priority spot 1, have that there as well. Okay, go to the next slide. If we look at the plus, tap the plus, again, we have full access to our photos, our video, and anything that's basically on our iPad. We can go ahead and add those documents to our presentation and continue to build a beautiful presentation as we see fit. You also notice you have tables, charts, and shapes, which are, again, the same as we saw in Pages and in Keynote. Excuse me, in Numbers. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. And here's just another screenshot of what the tables look like. Again, very similar to what we've seen in the other applications. You can add tables to your presentation as well, of course. And let's go ahead and go to the next slide, Katie. Here is, of course, your charts. Here are 2D and our 3D charts. You can add those to your presentation. Next slide. And then finally, we get a look at our tools. This is where we have options for our transitions and builds. We can share and print our documents. You have the ability to find or search something in your document. For presentations, you can have your presenter notes there available as well. Then we have some advanced options, which if you go ahead and go to the next slide, Katie. Your advanced options, we have things like turning our slide numbers on and off. The guides basically help you to align your boxes and your text when you're placing it on your slides. You can have interactive hyperlinks so that if you tap it, it'll go to a specific website. You have options for your presentation type, and then which we can have it continuously loop on and so forth. Then my personal favorite is you can have your remote. So go ahead and go to the next slide, Kitty. I think I went to, okay, presentation type here. Here's where we loop it. We have a self-plane if we don't want to interact with it. You have transition delays, build delays. You can put those in the presentation as well. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. I think oh yeah, here we go. So the remote is basically when you're using an iPad, if you don't have an Apple TV, you're going to have to connect your device to a television or a projector via cable. And you may not necessarily want to stand right next to your iPad. So for $1.99, you can purchase a Keynote remote application, which you can have on your iPhone, which basically will link your iPhone via, I think it's via Bluetooth. Will link that to your iPad, and you can control the movement of the slides from your iPhone. Really neat gadget to have. It also has, you also have the ability to have a pointer on your presentation. If you touch and hold your finger anywhere on the iPad or your remote, it will actually place like a red dot like you have a laser pointer on your presentation. But the iPhone application is excellent. It works very well, and I would recommend that if you're going to be doing a lot of presentations that you do have some type of remote, unless you, of course, would like to stand right next to your iPad. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So here's just a slide of the undo button. If you tap and hold it, it gives you the ability to undo and redo. Just wanted to give you a quick look at that. Again, that feature is available in all of the applications, and it will actually, it has no limitation. It will go all the way back to the beginning, the creation of your document. You just continue to undo, 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 undo. Go to the next slide, please. Again, pages, all of these applications, Keynote and Numbers, they save your work while you're on the go. So you can just pick up where you left off. If you start creating a document and you switch over to your calendar, or you just stop at that point, once you go back to your document from any access point, you're going to see your document in the state in which you left it. Okay? Let's go ahead and go to the next one. So, Docs in iCloud, basically there's a feature in your device, your iPad or your iPhone, under your settings, which allow you to turn on the iCloud access and store those documents in the cloud. Again, you can also have access to those documents by going to any computer, going to www.icloud.com, and logging into your iCloud panel. You will then see iWork's documents, and you can then download any of those documents from that panel as well. From the iCloud panel, you can export the documents to either PDF, or you can export them to their Microsoft equivalent. So a Pages document, if you go to the iCloud panel, you can download it or as a Word document. And I think it is the latest version of Word document that it downloads. Last time I did it, I think it was that, but I think it may have changed to a more common or compatible format of Word. And also, of course, I don't know if I said this already, but you can download them as PDF versions. So if you create a Pages document and you need to send it to someone as a PDF, you can just go up there and download it and as a PDF document and go ahead and email it and share it with whoever you'd like to. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So the next slide is showing basically the settings on your iPad or your iPhone. You go down under the Apps section, looking on the left-hand side of the screen there. You can see that I've tapped the Pages application, and on the right side of the screen where it says Use iCloud, I have that turned on. If you don't have that turned on, that your documents will not be transferred to the cloud. Okay, and you will have to do that on all of your iOS devices if you have these applications. Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So the next slide is basically just showing you, if we look at the document on the right side of the screen, next to draft, you see a little arrow pointing up. It says iPad or something webinar. That little arrow pointing upwards means it's just uploading that document to the cloud. If you see that, then you know you have your iCloud feature turned on. Okay, if you go to the next slide, there we see an actual document that's uploading. I made some changes to it. The blue bar is just showing that it's saving those changes, and it will eventually upload that document to the cloud as well. So just wanted to give you a little snapshot of what it will look like once you are connected to the cloud. Next slide. So this is the actual iCloud panel. You go to www.icloud.com. once you log in, you see all the way over there to the right, the iWork icon. If you just click that, it will bring you up to the next slide. Here we see the Keynote, the pages and numbers tab at the top, and that's basically just separating your documents based on those applications. And so we see that these documents are the same documents that I had on my iPad, but it's just a screenshot of what I'm doing on my www.icloud panel. If we go to the next slide, Katie, once you click on one of the documents, the project proposal, which we were looking at earlier, it brings up a screen which gives you the ability to download it as a Pages document, as a PDF document, or Word document. So I will download that document to your computer, and then you can share it or do whatever you'd like to do with it from that point. Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide, which is a summary. So, Pages, Keynote, and Numbers, you can see you can easily create your documents in a native format, or you can create and export documents to the Microsoft equivalent options, or of course if you receive a Microsoft equivalent option, you can open those documents in one of these applications as well. So the documents are compatible with the latest versions of Office, I think docx type files, so on and so forth. The documents can be stored in the cloud, pushed to other devices. It's a very handy feature that has saved me quite a few times. And your documents can easily be shared, updated, printed from your iPad, and all of your applications are full-featured. And once you get in and play around with it, it will increase your productivity. And my favorite thing is that these applications are all affordable. You can buy the ones you want. $19.99 for the versions on your computer, and for your iPad, that's what we're talking about, only $9.99 each for those applications. A great investment. Again, they've helped me out tremendously in my dealings in business and presentations and so on and so forth. So with that, I think we're done. And Katie, I'm not sure if we have any questions, but if we do, we can go ahead and take a couple since we have a few minutes left.
All right, thanks, Sheldon. Now, if anyone has any questions, please go ahead and use the Q&A panel that can be found in the corner of your screen, and I'm just going to filter through. Our first question is, I have a 2009 version of iWork. Would it be compatible with current iWork versions for the iPad?
Yeah, those documents, they should be compatible. They should be compatible with that, yeah.
Okay. Our next question is, can you add formulas and macros?
You can add formulas. You can definitely add formulas. If you select that keyboard option that we showed on that slide, you can go through and add the functions and things like that. You're basically building a formula at that point for that cell and what you're selecting. So yes, in terms of macros, I don't think you can do macros, but I know for sure that you can definitely do the formulas.
Okay, our next question is about the remote. It says, is the remote available for Androids?
I don't know. You'd have to look in the marketplace. You know what? I don't know. I don't have an Android, never been to the marketplace, so I couldn't answer that for you. I would assume that it probably is available.
Okay, and then a follow-up question is, can we link our PC with our iPad using dual screens, and can we use the iPad for the remote?
Can you link your PC with your iPad using dual screens? I'm not familiar with, I don't know if dual screens is an application. I've never done that. Typically, I link my iPad with either a television or a projector, either through the HDMI connector or through Apple TV. And then you can use your iPad as a remote, but not necessarily. Maybe you can use it to control another iPad. You may be able to do that. But I know the remote application will definitely work on your iPhone or your iPod, so I'm assuming it will work on your iPad as well to control another iPad. But I mean, that's very creative. You just have to kind of try it and see if it works.
Okay, so if someone had a PC computer with that monitor then, and then their iPad and they hooked it up, they would be able to use dual screens, meaning they could drag their content from the iPad to the monitor?
No, you're speaking of like something in either Windows 7 or something like that. No,
right.
I don't think you can do that. No.
Okay. Our next question is for connecting iPad to a presentation device for a Keynote presentation. Do you have any recommendations on cables or even cable vendors that seem to be more robust than Apple's?
I haven't had any issues with cables. I mean, to connect it to a projector, I'm assuming you would just really need, you would just, if the projector has HDMI, you can just get a basic HDMI cable is great. You're just really, unless you're shooting video in your presentation, then you may want a higher quality cable. But, I used to buy Monster cables, but they're really expensive, and I found some other cables with just as high a quality that aren't as expensive. I mean, if you go to Amazon or something, or go to the MacMall store, macmall.com, and look there, then you'll get a full selection of cables that are available for that. The only thing that I don't like is actually connecting my iPad to a USB, an HDMI cable through the universal connector on the bottom, because those connectors don't attach very securely, and so if you're moving around with your iPad, it will detach very easily, and then it does take a few seconds for your projector or your television to mirror that. So it is very distracting. So that's why I do recommend either if you do get a cable, leave it in one place and use a remote, or the best thing is to have an Apple TV. You can stream the content through Apple TV to your television, or even through Apple TV to a projector.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is, what happens if the fonts are not the same between Word and Pages?
It will select something that it deems is compatible, and that happens from time to time. But it will automatically select the font which it thinks is compatible for you.
Okay.
You have more of a limited selection of fonts on your iPad than you would on your computer, but most of the general ones are there. But I have had instances where I did something in a particular font and it wasn't available, and so I just selected another font.
Okay, our next question is, how do you transfer iWork's documents between iPad and Mac computers without using iCloud? Is it possible?
Email. Just email it.
Okay. Our next question is, any tips for trying to import Word documents without with the formatting look in Pages? So I don't know if that refers to fonts or, sure, any tips for trying to import Word documents, it says, without the horrible formatting look in Pages.
No, it's just when you import something, it's going to just do its own thing in terms of formatting. So you're kind of stuck with that. The best thing, if your formatting is your issue or your concern, I should say, then in most cases you're going to have to do some reformatting if you have a document that does contain a lot of different format options in it. Otherwise, if you're just after the text, if you keep it simple, and it'll work pretty well.
Okay, and our next question. Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, can we just take one more? Okay.
Yeah, we'll take one more. Okay. So our animations that are created in either Keynote or PowerPoint, they will not be able to transfer to the other program. Is that correct, or can they?
If you transfer to Pages on your desktop, it will transfer just fine. And in most cases, it will transfer to PowerPoint. Again, it's similar to fonts. It may not transfer, and you may just have to, if you're exporting to PowerPoint, you may have to go in and just reapply the animation on a PowerPoint, on the PowerPoint application. But if you're going from Pages to Pages, it should transfer on your iPad to your desktop computer. It should transfer without any issues.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Sheldon. That ends our questions for today. It was a great presentation. You know, we work with the iPad frequently, and it is, you know, it's instrumental in businesses, and it really does help them to be more productive. We also do mobile management of iPads, which is a past webinar that we had a few weeks ago, but you can certainly call your MacMall account executive and ask them about mobile management and how that works and how it can help your business. So thanks for joining, everyone. Really appreciate it. Sheldon did a great job. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.